Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome. It's Nurse Richard the Wax Wizard. Oh, strap yourselves in. If you're a fan of a longer video and a really complicated, difficult one, then you've come to the right place. But if you haven't got 27 minutes spare, then maybe watch it later. If you have, strap yourselves in, get yourself a brew, and come and join me for what is possibly the hardest procedure I've done all year, if not ever. And it was almost impossible for a few reasons, and I will get into that in a bit. Now, the reasons why, this was a lady in her late 60s, early 70s, very well known to ENT, to ear, nose and throat. She'd always seen the specialist there for a clear out because she has a chronic perforation. Don't know if you can quite see it just yet in this ear, and with a chronic perforation they've decided against repairing it. The reasons for that I'm not entirely sure, but they've decided to just make sure it's cleaned out every now and then. Now, she said this was last done 3 years ago, and I'll be honest, the reason why this was difficult, it wasn't because of the amount of in there, and it's how hard it is. And it's probably the most solid structure I've ever tried to remove from anybody's ear. It was like a brick. It was like concrete. You can't explain it unless you're feeling it with the suction probe. And it was so tightly stuck to this poor lady's ear canal. It was an absolute nightmare to try and get off. Not so much the first bit here, but the last bit. And the reason why it's even harder than it already needs to be is because this lady's got a perforation in her ear. I didn't want to put drops in her ear to soften anything up and loosen anything, because if I put drops in this lady's ear, she's got a hole in her eardrum, it's going to dribble straight through there and go into a middle ear space. And it's not really where you want ear drops that. You want them in the ear canal. You don't want them in the middle ear. I know there are some medications that can use that are a bit safer should it dribble down into there, but I don't really want anything else dribbling in there that we don't need going in there. Gonna get some tools out in a bit, because I've got to a point here where I've already peeled. You can just see how thick this layer of dead skin can. It's pretty much all dead skin, but I've got to a point here where the suction becomes nigh on impossible to get hold of these things, because I can't tell you how hard that black thing is just to the right hand side there. And I've just touched up a little bit, just flapped up in front of me. Sometimes you get the bit that you're not expecting, that you're not actually aiming for. As soon as you put it in, it obviously gets drawn to the suction tube. So let's just yank that out of the way. But what I'm really wanting to do is to lift up that really dark, hardened section. You'll probably see as well, a bit flummoxed by all the colours in this, as was I. Now, the black, and there's a few reasons why it could be like that. The blackened area is obviously, it's oxidised, it's that old. It's turned black. That's a sign of how old it is, this dead skin, this keratin. And yet there's like a white lining on top of it in areas more towards the back of it. Could be a couple of reasons for that. There could be some fungal growth in it. It could have got a bit of moisture, got a bit soggy. I'll be honest, it didn't feel soggy at all. This is where Neil's curette was an absolute godsend. I don't think I would have been able to get this out if it wasn't for this, because it's angled to the shape of the ear canal. When something's really stuck to the side of it or the base of it, it's really good at gliding down the side of it without making contact with the ear canal. She was quite sensitive to touch and to pain, this lady. So I had to be super careful. Another reason why it's difficult. But I wouldn't have been able to get any other tool in comfortably underneath that. And I don't, especially in an area like this I'm just going to, because that is welded to the bottom of the ear canal. And if you get any other tool other than this one, the suction alone wouldn't have been enough to lift that up. But any other tool other than that one, you would have grazed against the ear canal, such as a Cawthorn hook or a Rosen circuit, any other tools other than this one. So I have to thank Neil for really getting me out of the doo-doo with this one. Because it was an absolute godsend, is Curette for something like this. She's very nervous, this lady, because I think every time she's been to her nose and throat before, she has described it as being quite uncomfortable. Not surprising. If it looks like this every time, then I'm not surprised it's uncomfortable, to be honest with you. Some of this could also be some fluid, gunk and mucus that dribbles out of the middle ear, and then when it gets into the ear canal, it just dries and sets. But it's beyond solid and it's beyond stuck. These first few bits were, believe it or not, relatively straightforward. It's the bit that's stuck to her eardrum. And if you get frustrated watching earwax removal videos, I turn away now. Put something else on. Because getting the bit at the bottom out was, it took forever. Did get it, pretty much all of it in the end. So we're going in with the forceps to try and pull that up. Because it is so hard and brittle, it tends to snap. I was hoping that it may well all come, but it didn't. You can just see a little soggy gooey bit as well underneath that then, didn't you?
Yeah, nothing else going to happen.
But it's one of the hardest things I've ever done, to be honest. And I'm not, as you know, if you've watched a lot of my videos, I do use suction quite a lot. It's easier than using tools, I'm not going to lie. I find it slightly safer too. And I'm not, generally speaking, a fan of putting tools deep in someone's ear, in the bony part of the ear. Because if you bump that skin with those tools, it's not very nice at all. So it's not often, but sometimes you have no choice. And with this one, I had absolutely no choice but to get this in. I know you'll see a lot of videos, maybe those that come from Asia and the Far East. They pretty much exclusively use tools such as the Cawthorn hook quite commonly. And a little like flat scraper thing that I've seen as well. Ooh, makes my toes curl looking at something like that. They use them almost exclusively. It's because a lot they're more used to it, so they do it more often because the wax from patients in that part of the world is generally speaking a bit drier. So suction's not great for that, but that's not often the case here. You're more Western wax, generally a bit wetter. So it's not often I come across something that's so hardened like this. You can see the perforation now, can't you? A little like a teardrop shaped hole at the bottom of the eardrum. And for the next fair few minutes, you'll see me having a disagreement with this hardened shard that's stuck to the eardrum. It's going to be a bit uncomfortable, unfortunately. There's no way around it, and I did explain that to the patient. And it can be done, getting underneath that with a tool, but like I said, I'm not really prepared to put a sharp tool just in front of someone's eardrum so I can pull that forward. I was almost tempted at one point, but I thought I'll just keep persevering because it will come. You've just got to be patient sometimes. And it's better to be safe and patient than do something that you're uncomfortable with it's an unacceptable level of risk. And you will find that a lot of nurses particularly are probably quite risk averse. There is a very good reason for that, because unfortunately these days in healthcare, litigation is very common. It's really common. I did briefly work in the legal sector in nursing, and saw all kinds of claims for all kinds of things. And if you've done something that's slightly risky, that maybe you shouldn't have done, you've not got a leg to stand on, unfortunately. So yeah, we are. As a breed, nurse is very risk averse. Safety is always key, as is patient comfort too. I should have got a brew ready for this one, knowing how long it is. I've probably even got time to boil a kettle, to be honest, before we get this thing out. Lemon juice will have to do. It's quite tarty, that. I think I made it too strong. So as you can see, I can't begin to tell you the feeling of resistance I'm getting when I'm trying to pull some things like this off. Satisfying when it comes, but it's like someone's got a hard scab. You know, when you cut your knee or something, you get a big black scab on it. It's come off and you just left it on the side for 3 years. It's gone that hard, and then someone put it in her ear, put some super glue underneath it, and then stuck it to her eardrum. And like I explained before, don't want to put any oil or any moisture in this ear because it's just going to fall straight in that hole. And yes, it is beyond frustrating watching something like this. But imagine how I felt doing it, and the poor patient as well. You know, at this point, she did ask me to stop on a couple of occasions because it was uncomfortable. And you can probably tell when that happens when I'm touching it with the probe and I try and peel it to the side, and then you'll just see it like just slip off it. It's kind of slipped off it because it's hard. It's absolutely solid. I know Conrad's got an analogy for this. It is almost like that sensation of touching bone, where, you know, fork on a brick, I think is the word he uses. But that's a similar sensation and feedback I'm getting from the suction probe with this. That might look white and soft. It's not. You can literally feel it scraping along the edges of this. And obviously it's on someone's eardrum. So you have to be careful and throw into the factor that I'm having to use a fine end tube too. Wouldn't dream of putting a full size tube to pull something off someone's eardrum. That would have to be an absolute emergency, that would. You can just start to see it coming forward, can't you? I was just willing it with every fibre in my body to just all come loose. It does eventually. Spoiler alert. But it does take some time. How far are we through? We're about halfway through. It mostly took so long because when eventually I did get little bits of this off, it just snapped off in tiny little pieces. But I know there's a lot of you that like slightly longer ones. And if you're watching on YouTube, you might get in the longer ones, I think they have to be at least 8 minutes long. You might get a few. You might have already had some. You might get a few adverts popping up in the middle of it too. You won't get many because of this, because of the type of content this is. So what I've explained before, we do this because we enjoy doing it. We don't do it because we make a fortune from it. We really don't. Advertisers don't like putting adverts in things like this. They really don't. But the types, I have seen some actually, and it tickled me. And I only got in touch with a company saying please don't do this because we don't choose which adverts go in. I saw adverts for the cheap tools, you know, that you get from Amazon. Well, you can get them anywhere, but you see a lot of them on Amazon. You're looking for earwax remover, you know, the devices you can attach to your smartphone, and with a little camera and a rubber scoop on. Lethal, don't buy them. And even the ones that look like a little rubber corkscrew that you put in there, I've seen those companies putting adverts in my videos, which I have no control over, unfortunately. But if you do see any, don't buy them. Let the video run out though. Maybe even click on the link. I might make an extra 0.00000.1 pence if you just let the video run out instead of pressing skip. So yeah, you want to help me out. Buy me a few tea bags to get through procedures like this, then just let those videos run through. So you saw a little bit just pulled away then. Now this is where I have decided, let's try a full-size tube here. Again, I said before, it's got to be a last resort, but because this bit's already come forward a little bit, I don't have to go that close to the eardrum, so no, it's quite safe. And it worked quite quickly, with that piece anyway. But I did have a real close look at this to try and figure out why it's white, because it's that dry. Normally you'd expect white in freshly shed skin. You would also expect it in a really soggy skin. There's there's far from it, hardly any moisture at all in this eardrum. So it's still baffling me a little bit, and it's not moist that you'd expect any of this to be fungal as well. I really don't know. My first thought when I looked at it was, and bear with me on this, I've not read up on it, so it's probably nothing to do with it. But you remember when this only seemed to happen years and years ago? I remember as a kid, if you were ever out and about and somebody, and it was a really hot, dry day or a hot summer, and whenever some irresponsible dog owners would let the dogs do something on the pavement, sidewalk, it'd be white a lot of the time. And I think that's something to do with calcium, is it? But it might well be also something to do with something bone dry. I don't know. I probably should have looked into this beforehand, but I did think, is there a similar thing happening to this earwax that used to happen to that's left on the sidewalk? Who knows? You don't see many white dog poops anymore, do you? Let me know in the comments if that's just me that remembers that, and you don't seem to see much anymore. Don't know why that is. Finally broke away that bit. Now, the black bit does come away. Before I get to the end of the video, I've got to tell you that, yes, there is another fine, very hardened layer. Can you see it's kind of orangey surrounding the perforation? I was hoping that would come away with it, but it didn't. And the patient had more than enough just trying to get this thing out. But I've said maybe when she comes again, there'll be less of it and I'll have more time to have a go at that one there. Now, there is a chance as well to add it into the mix. Obviously, this area at the top of the ear canal, it can be quite commonly, well, not that commonly, but with someone with as an extensive medical ear history as this lady has, that you can't rule out cholesteatomas in that particular part of the eardrum. So some of this dead skin as it migrated, that still might be the case, because when I pulled it off, there was like I can only describe it as like a stalk. After this comes out, there is like a small white area where you would generally find collections of skin in there. Now, she's going to see the specialist next week, I think. So I did send her family, because they were with her at the time, some pictures and images and videos of this procedure, so they could have a good look. So I don't know if they use endoscopes. They obviously use ENT microscopes, which are just as detailed for the most part. But I thought they might appreciate having a look at some pictures. So we'll see what they think about this.
I wish I could.
But it just felt older than 3 years to me. It was that solid. Might be wrong, but
Too close to her eardrum, too close to the perforation.
it's just glued. It's just glued onto the eardrum. And when something's as dry as this as well, it's just really hard to get a good grip of it, especially with a little teeny tiny tube. But like I said before, I ain't putting a tool in there to scoop that off the eardrum. Absolutely no way. No way, Jose. Yeah, these long videos, sometimes you run out of things to say. Say about it. It's frustrating. I don't know what to tell you. But I don't, rarely anyway, I rarely plan. Oh, what am I going to talk about during this video? Talk a bit about the procedure, but when it's something like this long, I've already told you everything about it. So it's like, what's left now? What can I tell you? It's kind of a quiet day in clinic today. Doesn't happen very often. In fact, in nursing, you're not really allowed to say that word, quiet. We used to call it the Q word. If ever there wasn't too many patients on the ward or too many patients on your list of people to see. someone would say, "Oh, it's quiet today," and then usually a junior member of staff or a student nurse, and everyone would turn around and look. Oh, I can't believe you've just said that. It's like the equivalent of actors who can't say. Is it Macbeth? They can't say. Oh, break a leg, something like that. Yeah, they can't say they call it the Scottish play. That's it. They're not allowed to say it, apparently it's really bad luck. But it is proven bad luck if any nurse anywhere says it's quiet. I'll be honest, that doesn't happen very often. But when it does, you're not allowed to say it. You just kind of look at each other and say, it's a bit, yeah, the cue, yeah. And just leave it at that. And then something catastrophic will happen. And you say, you even thinking it, you shouldn't have even thought it. How long have we got left? Maybe we've got time for a few dad jokes of the day. Well, they're not dad jokes, they're from the nursing book, which I think is definitely my favourite one. So, should we have a couple from here? And I know this lady who's here, this is what might look. Is it coming? Look at that. Maybe I'm near to the end. Yeah, I think I've got her other ear on this. So that was what I was explaining about. Yeah, there's this thin layer there. I'm not going to entertain that. But there's a white circle in the top right-hand corner. And that could be like the stalk of what we've just pulled off. And is there anything sneaking down there? Quite possibly. Quite possibly. So this was her other ear. And it goes to show how bone dry her ears are generally, because this is exactly the same. And it's very thick. I was quite surprised when I peeled this off. How bone dry it was. I'm just glad it wasn't on her eardrum like the other one was. All right, go on, let's have a couple of nursing jokes of the day. What chapter should we have? There's a chapter here called Rude and Risque Nurse Jokes. I haven't looked through any of them, but should we brave it? Yeah, go on then. I normally check these beforehand, but I'm not this time. Right. I applied to be a sperm donor and... Donor? I'll start that again. I applied to be a sperm donor and the nurse asked if I could masturbate into the cup. I told her that I'm pretty good, but I don't think I'm ready to compete in a tournament yet. Oh, I can see where these ones are all going. Went to see the nurse this morning for my annual checkup. She told me that I'd have to stop masturbating. I asked why. She said, "'Cause I'm trying to examine you." Yeah, these are definitely risky. Right, let's have one more from you. Of course I won't laugh, said the nurse. I'm a professional. In over 20 years, I have never laughed at a patient. I think they've missed out a bit in this. I assume a patient is saying, I'm going to tell you something now, but please don't laugh. Yeah, she said, in 20 years, I've never laughed at a patient. Oh, okay then, said the patient. He then proceeded to undo his trousers and underwear, revealing the smallest penis the nurse has ever seen in her life. The nurse was unable to control herself and started laughing. Feeling awful that she'd laughed at the man's private part, she said, I'm very sorry. I don't know what came over me. I know I promised I wouldn't laugh before, but I just couldn't help it. On my honour as a nurse, I promise it won't happen again. Now tell me, exactly what is the problem? The patient replied, it's swollen. Very good. Hang on, missed it. There we go. And also for that one. It was a shocker. Speaking of shockers, I wasn't expecting this. I didn't realise that was it. I was just peeling from the right hand side of that ear, and just have a quick nosy down the dip, because as soon as you get into the ear, most people's ears anyway, you go into the ear, and then it kind of dips. You can't see that off camera, can't you? It kind of dips down a bit and goes up, and you get these. Some are more pronounced than others, and so I just have a quick nosy down in there, and yeah, look what we found. This giant thick sheet of dead skin that I didn't realise was there. So we're going to peel that away with the fine end tube. None of this would have been affecting the patient. might have been a little itchy, but I didn't want this to turn into what I found in the other ear. Absolutely not. Because that was an epic battle to get that one. This is coming away a fair amount easier. I didn't feel the need to use oil in this, even though I could have done, because there's no perforation in this ear. But it came away pretty easily without having to do so. I didn't have to break a new bottle of oil open as well. Not that that plays a part in it. Yeah, just blocked up. Oh no, not blocked up. Disappeared up the tube. Nice little peel to finish off this extremely epic procedure. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed these videos and you enjoy what I do, then tell me about it. I do love reading all the comments. Leave me a comment, like the video, share it, whatever you want to do. But please, 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 if you could subscribe to the channel, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook or TikTok, then if you follow the page as well, that would really help me out massively. And I keep forgetting to tell you, if you are watching on TikTok, you'll notice that when you're watching it like that, you'll just see a little sideways image like that. But it's a faff to upload it so it's in vertical mode. But what TikTok does now, you can upload it as it is on YouTube and Facebook in horizontal, like a little rectangle. All you got to do, underneath it, you'll see a little button that says full screen. Press that, turn your phone around. A picture of my wife and kids on there as a home screen. If anyone's not seen them, there they are. Oh, there they were. So yeah, just turn it round if you watch it on TikTok, and then it'll fill the whole screen. And there it is. Not a bad eardrum. Certainly better than the other one. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for sticking with it. I know it was probably frustrating. I'll probably get a load of abuse in the comments saying, oh, you took way too long doing that. Tell you what, you come and have a go if you think you can do it. But anyway, for now, take care of yourself, and I'll see you later. Ta-da.